Hello, and welcome to this next video in the series, Lyric German Latin Diction. So, in this video, we're going to be getting a little closer to the actual subject of Latin diction. So, we're not going to dive yet into the nitty-gritty of German Latin, but we are going to take a look at it and why there are so many variations of Latin pronunciation. As a singer, you've probably sung in Latin many, many times, probably using at least Italianate or Church Latin, and maybe you've come across German Latin or French Latin in your performance and in your career. So why are there all of these variations? So, Latin for a long time was a lingua franca. It was the international language used throughout Europe, and most of the people who spoke it did not speak it as a native language. It was a language used for commerce, trade, things like that, so people could come together and people from different backgrounds and different countries could come together to exchange and do business and things like that. Now, because it wasn't really a native language of anybody, it tended to take on the characteristics of the person's native language. So both in speech and then also kind of in the errors that people would make, the grammatical errors. So people could speak it fluently. It would be what we call accented, and probably with some minor variations in grammar that are based off of the person's native language. So, and in many ways, this is very similar to how English is today. Though there's obviously more people who speak English natively, there are many people who speak English as a second language. They do it really only for work or business, or it's not a part of their personal life, but it's a very important part of their professional life. And often when that happens, people can sometimes speak with accents, or they speak with a certain color of their native language. I think if we think about pronunciation like that, and we look at this scenario, understanding all the variations in Latin becomes a lot easier to comprehend. So just like when someone speaks English with a German accent or a French accent, someone can speak Latin with a German accent or a French accent, Spanish accent, Czech, Polish, whatever. There's a whole bunch of different manners, but at the same time, it would be really difficult to define very clearly, well, what is a German accent in English? It could vary so much, and same with a French accent. When speaking English, there's no one way you could say, well, this is how all French people speak English, or this is how all German people speak English. And so really, depending on where that person is from, it could have even where that person is from regionally within the country could have a big effect on the pronunciation of either the English or back in the day Latin. And so that's really what we're talking about. And so in the same way, that we do have rules for stage pronunciation with German and French and Italian, English, there's some standards that we've come up with. Those same standards don't exist in the same way when we go over to Latin for singing. And so here are actually some of the variations you might have seen. Classical, which is just I've never seen anyone sing in classical Latin. Kind of the way back when. Italianate, so people from that's the one we're most comfortable with. And then German, but that can come from Germany or Austria, and there's already variations in that. And then same with French. There's variations in the south and the north in how Latin is pronounced. And then here are some others that I've seen, but I don't have too much experience with: Spanish Latin, Czech Latin, Polish, English. Won't get into that. It's crazy. And then ecclesiastical, which was more a system that the church created in order to teach people basic Latin pronunciation as Latin became less of a lingua franca and has slowly fallen into obscurity in terms of day-to-day usage. So there's many more, but again, all of these are really based on the speech patterns of the native. And so with all of these variations, how do we come together and unify our pronunciation as an ensemble? And what's involved in that? And before I get too into that, I would like to just share this book. If any of you are interested in checking it out, this is where some of the ideas for this video series have come from, and then also a lot of this has shaped my own personal understanding of Latin pronunciation and singing. But this book was put out by Vera Scher, and it's really quite a document, and she goes really into the nitty-gritty of each of these, the classic Italian, German, and French pronunciations. But one of the things that I really appreciated about the book was her emphasis that all of these things are super interesting. All of these particularities and specifics of pronunciation you can get lost in them. But the main thing to keep in mind is to hold on to the character of the language that you're working in. So if you're doing German Latin, it needs to have German characteristics. And if you're doing French Latin, it has to have the characteristics of the French language. And so it's not so much about understanding the specific phonemes that you're supposed to make, or the specific sounds, the vowel sounds and everything. It's really having a good understanding of the melody of the language and the characteristics of that language. And so as we go forward in this series, we're going to be going over what are the characteristics of German that we want to bring into our Latin pronunciation, and then how do we do that, and then how can we do that as an ensemble consistently, while of course also taking into mind good vocalism and musicality. So that's kind of the brief overview of Latin, how we have all of those different flavors, and what we're going to be trying to achieve together with our German pronunciation, our regional German Latin pronunciation as done by the singers of Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, I think, okay, I could go on and on about this, but I'm gonna stop, and we're gonna go over in the next video a little bit more about just German characteristics of the language and the pronunciation when singing. And I truly think that this is going to make our dive into the specifics of the Latin pronunciation a lot easier, and I hope it helps us all get on the same page, regardless of our past experience with this topic. All right, that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.